The Credit Information Corporation is a government-owned and controlled corporation created by Republic Act No. 9510 with the mandate of collecting and disseminating credit information to promote access to credit of micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. Based on 2019 data, there are at least a million business enterprises in the Philippines, 99.5% of which are MSMEs considered as major drivers of the country's economic growth. This is the reason why we are promoting the use of this important financial infrastructure. The key questions on this topic are, first, do lenders have credit information on entrepreneurs or aspiring business owners seeking credit? Second, are borrowers still dependent on physical assets as collateral, most especially women?
More than 8 of 10 MSMEs are micros, mostly owned by women. Surveys showed that to sustain their business, particularly during the pandemic, micro-entrepreneurs need infusion of capital, since many have depleted their savings. Access to larger loans, however, is hampered by lack of property, whether real or personal, that they can use as collateral, and lack of proof of income and government-issued identification.
This is Joji, and I'm the owner of Coffee for Peace Cafe. We source our coffee from the farmers themselves that we trained, and we serve it to our customer, Davao City. At my back, behind me, is our roastery. We do toll roasting for our farmers because we encourage them that they could sell their own beans in their own neighborhood and not rely on just one type of market. So they can have different market. We have to restructure how they see credit and application for credit and qualification for credit for micro entrepreneurs. They are scared of getting credit. They are scared of even opening a bank account. They are scared of putting money in the bank because they don't know what's happening. They have to experience it because the testimony of one individual to another micro entrepreneur is more powerful than a banker convincing the micro entrepreneur. So they have to experience it, that it works.
We can take a look at how a woman may be disadvantaged from the credit information perspective. The female spouse who runs a home-based business will most likely lack a formal proof of revenue. She doesn't have a payslip, or she might not have a tax identification number. This lack of basic business information and credit history compels women entrepreneurs to provide collaterals when availing loans. This is where the CIC credit report, which contains both positive and negative credit data of the borrower, enters the picture. While a certificate of employment serves as proof of ability to generate income, the CIC credit report is a proof of creditworthiness or the ability to pay financial obligations, especially in the case of women entrepreneurs.
I am happy with this kasi at least yan, nakapirme na yung loob mo. Hindi ka na kailangan mangutang kung kani-kanino para lang to go on. Maganda yung program niyo, makakatulong. Talagang malaki ang maigagawa ng tulong.
Nung na-approve kami ng business line credit sa Union Bank, it's a big help for us because we already put our site office. It's a very big help to our business because medyo nawawala na yung ipon namin for the business, and we want to continue to support our employee for their salary as well as for their allowance. For the process, it was very straightforward. Ang saya lang kasi during the conversation, we're approved for a specific loan. And then after that, yung na-email na kami, it was higher. So it's a big help for the business talaga. There is no collateral po. We just have to submit all the requirements needed, and then the bank will process it na po.
During the pandemic, Toyota Financial Services was able to grant a revolving credit facility to Ms. Leia Peter Torrenueva. Key factors with its good credit history, with all its credit obligations, with no negative findings as assessed by our credit department.
The credit line that is extended to us by Toyota Financial is a great help, especially in our operation, because instead of getting money from our pocket, we are able to utilize your support financially in rolling up the business in our daily, weekly, and monthly operations. So yung Toyota Financial, hindi kami nagkausap, hindi kami nagkakilala, pero binigyan ako ng credit line. Binigyan ako ng extensions. We treasured that we value that, na binigyan kami ng line kahit walang ganun walang binigay na mga collateral or ganun.
The trust and the relationship, it all started with, a good credit history, a good credit background. So now it's easier for us to grant you any amount, whatever you need for the growth, for you to explore more business opportunities. Because as mentioned, in terms of, you've always been one of the good payers.
I'm Arlette Alvarado of Scarlet Enterprise. We make all natural personal care products using the local produce of Filipino farmers in support of the agricultural community.
We have been self-financing our business for almost 15 years. And now, despite the pandemic, the demand for our products are increasing. So I think it's the right time for us to expand our business. And a loan will be very helpful for us in doing so. We will be able to reach more customers and reach more buyers. Yes, I will be interested in getting my credit report so that I can use that information in making better financial decisions for the business.
The CIC database now has almost 24 million unique borrowers, and that's a huge percentage of the country's adult population. It has over 80 million contract data contributed by more than 500 financial institutions from across all sectors. And this means that the CIC covers the average Filipino, not just those who are banked, but also the unbanked and underbanked, including women who are mostly borrowers from microfinance institutions. Now that we have almost 100 accessing entities or institutions that are actually investing on and using the CIC credit report in assessing borrowers, the CIC gradually fills this information gap and levels the playing field between genders. If you have previous history, whether from your credit card transactions or multi-purpose cooperative loans, you can use this as proof that you are a trustworthy borrower, and then build up your credit footprint as an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur.
All right, a pleasant afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the 6th W-GDP Webinar on Women's Economic Empowerment, Ease of Doing Business, helping women entrepreneurs start and sustain their business. So before we begin, here are the house rules. First, other than the speakers and panelists are muted, you may ask questions to the panel via Q&A tab or the chat box. There will be an open forum where your questions will be answered. Lastly, help us improve our webinars by answering our survey. The link will be shared to you at the end of the webinar. Kindly indicate in the survey if you would like to receive a copy of the presentations. And with that, I now turn over the screen to Ms. Jean Ilo, Gender Specialist of UPPAF Respond and our moderator for this afternoon. Thank you. Ms. Jean?
Thank you very much, Jazz. For participants who are attending the W-GDP webinars for the first time, the webinar series aimed to promote women's economic empowerment. It is a joint activity of the Regulatory Reform Support Program for National Development, or RESPOND, which is supported by a grant from USAID in partnership with the Philippine Commission on Women. And we hope that the webinar will address key concerns of women entrepreneurs and workers during this COVID-19 pandemic times. As a USAID grantee, UPPAF Respond has designed a program of activities to promote USAID's gender equality and female empowerment policy to contribute to the Women Global Development. And its focus is to enable women by removing restrictive regulatory barriers. Next, please. At the same time that UPPAF, or the UP Public Administration Research and Extension Service Foundation, is promoting the gender equality and female empowerment policy of the USAID. It is also promoting the twin goals of gender equality and women's empowerment of the Philippine government. This is an advocacy issue that UPPAF shares with PCW and its other partners in the webinar. Now, today is the 6th webinar of the series. So far, we have had 4 in 2020 and 1 in 2021, which was January. So this is the 2nd webinar in 2021. The webinars so far had tackled women's access to credit, logistics or moving goods, online business or e-commerce, Food and Drug Administration's processes and requirements for processed food products, and alternative work arrangements and protection of the rights of women and men workers. The present webinar will focus on regulations related to starting a business, accessing or getting credit, and registering land. Efforts to streamline these as part of the ease of doing business efforts of government, and experiences of entrepreneurs in navigating both the old and the new regulatory environment. This webinar was organized in partnership not only with the PCW, but also with the Anti-Red Tape Authority, the Women and Gender Studies Association of the Philippines, the University of the Philippines Center for Women and Gender Studies, and of course, USAID. Now, an advisory from the webinar team to participants who wish to receive a certificate of attendance. You should have registered in this Zoom event, that you're viewing this through Zoom. Your actual viewing time as measured by Zoom should be at least 1 hour, and you have submitted the online post-evaluation form. This webinar will begin with welcome remarks from our Chief of Party, Dr. Henry Basilio, who will also introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Jeff Gobel of USAID Philippines. From there, we will go to the two main presentations, one by Director General Jeremiah or Mai Belgica, and the other by Dr. Nathalie or Natsi Africa Verceles, Director of the UPCWGS. Dr. Africa Verceles will be presenting the highlights of her research that was commissioned by UPPAF RESPOND. The next segment of the webinar will be a panel discussion by a panel of discussants consisting of Margie Santos, who heads the Quezon City Business Permits and Licensing Department, followed by Attorney Ala Bautista, or Attorney Eileen L. Amor Bautista, Senior Vice President of the Credit Information Corporation, and to wrap up the panel discussion will be Ms. Angela Gloria, an entrepreneur based in Quezon City. An open forum is expected to begin at 3:30. Then there will be closing remarks to be given by two of our partners for this webinar, Dr. Zarina Saloma Akvedunu, President of WISAP, and Attorney Cray Yusan Chavez, Executive Director of PCW. May I now call on Henry to give the welcome remarks. Henry?
Okay, thank you, Jean. Can you hear me? Am I coming in clear? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jean. Good afternoon and welcome to our 6th webinar on women's economic empowerment. As usual, we have a full house today, more than 260 participants and counting. So I'm happy to see a number of familiar names among the participants, our so-called Suki, who have been attending our webinar series for a year now. And this afternoon, we'll be tackling a very exciting topic, the ease of doing business and how it impacts on women entrepreneurs in terms of starting and sustaining their business. And we have assembled, as Jean has already mentioned, the best speakers and panelists on this topic, led by no less than the Director General of the Anti-Red Tape Authority, response partner, and our friend, Attorney Jeremiah Belgica. We also have with us the Director of the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies, Dr. Nathalie Verceles. Our Suki, Attorney Ala Bautista, Senior Vice President of the Credit Information Corporation. Our partner at the Quezon City Local Government Ease of Doing Business Work, Ms. Margie Santos, the Head of the Business Permits and Licensing Department. And we have an entrepreneur in the panel, in the person of Ms. Angela Gloria of CRD Herbal Corporation. And of course, the President of the Women's and Gender Studies Association of the Philippines, Professor Charina Akpedenu, and Attorney Christine Chavez of the Philippine Commission for Women. So to start the ball rolling, let me now introduce our first speaker who will give the opening remarks, Mr. Jeffrey Gobel, who is the new director of the United States Agency for the International Development Office of Economic and Development Governance. Prior to his current post, Mr. Gobel, or Jeff, as he would like to be called, served in the same capacity in USAID missions to Pakistan, Colombia, and South Sudan. He also served as Deputy Director of USAID's Office of Democracy and Governance in Egypt and led USAID's counterinsurgency effort in Iraq, in collaboration, of course, with the US military. Jeff holds a master's degree in international development policy from Duke University and earlier served as Peace Corps volunteer in Ukraine. So, without further ado, friends, please welcome Mr. Jeff Gobel.
Thank you, Dr. Basilio, and good afternoon, everybody. If I can just first start off by acknowledging Secretary Jeremiah Belhica, the Director General of the Anti-Red Tape Authority, Attorney Christine Yuzon Chavez, the Executive Director of the Philippine Commission on Women. We have Attorney Eileen Amor Bautista, the Senior Vice President from the Credit Information Corporation. Ms. Margie Santos, the head of the Quezon Business Permit and Licensing Department. And we also have Angelita Gloria, the president of CRD Herbal Corporation. And of course, all the other esteemed government partners, representatives of the private sector, women's movement, civil society, and academia. Magandang hapon inyong lahat. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to join you here this afternoon to represent the U.S. Agency for International Development, or more commonly known as USAID. USAID is a development arm of the United States government. And I'm glad to be here to support gender equality and women's empowerment, which I'm happy to say is a major priority of both the US and Philippine governments. We are thus very proud to be working with the Philippine government and the private sector in this dynamic arena and applaud your vision and dedication to this effort. This event represents part of the US government's Women Global Development and Prosperity Initiative, or commonly known as W-GDP, which is technically a whole of government effort to advance women's economic empowerment globally. This initiative focuses on 3 pillars: women prospering in the workforce, women succeeding as entrepreneurs, and women enabled in the economy. With support from USAID through its Regulatory Reform Support Program for National Development, or commonly known as RESPOND, the University of the Philippines Public Administration Research and Extension Services Foundation Incorporated, or UPPAF, have been pursuing different activities under W-GDP. Just last month, I provided remarks at another W-GDP event which highlighted efforts to connect hundreds of women entrepreneurs to the digital economy. There, I shared the success story of a Filipina entrepreneur who doubled her sales from 45,000 pesos to 110,000 pesos per month after receiving training on how to market her products on Shopee, Lazada, and Facebook Marketplace, thus making her products accessible nationwide. While these direct interventions create significant impact, it is likewise important to focus on the overall enabling environment. If rules and regulations on starting and operating a business are supportive, this can help the private sector, including women-owned enterprises, to thrive. On the other hand, cumbersome procedures can have unfortunate stifling effects. For example, Dr. Natalia Africa Verceles, who is here with us today, relayed the experiences of women-owned microenterprises in Quezon City. Filipina entrepreneurs in the city appreciated the speedy processing of business licenses, which meant more time devoted to their businesses rather than wasting unproductive hours and days complying with endless paperwork. I would thus like to congratulate the local government of Quezon City for successfully reducing those processing times to 1 day, requiring only 3 steps and minimal documentary requirements. And this is really an impressive achievement, and you should be commended for setting such a fine example for the kinds of improvements that can be made. In some other LGUs, and we've heard this over and over from entrepreneurs, both women and men, business-related processes and requirements can be quite unclear. This lack of clarity both clogs and slows the process. And the lack of clarity also forces entrepreneurs into more face-to-face transactions, which creates costly rent-seeking opportunities. So overall, as most of the participants here would know, the Philippines has made tremendous strides in improving its business environment. The World Bank's Doing Business 2020 report noted the improvement of the Philippines' rank from 124 to 95 out of 190 countries. I again commend the Philippine government for its leadership and vision in this arena. The Philippines has put in place policy reforms that have enabled this dramatic rise, such as the passage of the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act back in 2018. And the US government is thrilled to be supportive of this noble effort. As USAID's Respond program continues to identify ways to further help reduce regulatory burdens and transaction costs for businesses, it's important to consider the unique challenges that women face. And these challenges really and unfortunately hinder the full realization of economic empowerment in the Philippines. UPPAF, in partnership with the Philippine Commission on Women, has organized a series of webinars that seek to make regulatory reform policies work for women entrepreneurs and workers. This event is the 6th webinar in a series and will focus on areas where women entrepreneurs need that extra push and support. This support is needed for such things as starting a business, obtaining credit, and registering property. And USAID strives to collaborate and engage with a multiplicity of actors. And I'm pleased that we have Secretary Belgica here with us today, the Director General of the Anti-Red Tape Authority. We applaud ARTA's efforts, together with other Philippine government agencies, in implementing key sections of the Ease of Doing Business law to improve the country's business environment. We certainly appreciate ARTA's willingness to partner with us on many initiatives. Another friend of USAID, Attorney Bautista, is with us today, and he will provide with us a useful discussion on access to credit. Also for today, we have two groups active in Philippine women's empowerment: the Women and Gender Studies Association of the Philippines and the University of the Philippines Center for Women's and Gender Studies. They will help us explore the barriers to starting and sustaining a business. And of course, we're looking forward to hearing directly from women entrepreneur owners themselves. I welcome Ms. Gloria and Ms. Nocario, both of whom will share their real-life experiences with us in today's program later on. So finally, in closing, I'm pleased to be part of this event and certainly thrilled that it coincides with the month of March. So let me take this opportunity to wish everyone with us today a very happy Women's Month. Undoubtedly, improving the business environment for women entrepreneurs is a key part of achieving the theme of this year's Women's Month celebration in the Philippines, which is titled "We Make Change Work for Women." I look forward to today's productive webinar with the distinguished speakers and panelists today. I challenge all of us here today to continue these efforts because improving the ease of doing business is hardly a static thing, and supporting women's innovation, creativity, and potential is also not static. In fact, it is and should be quite dynamic. So I encourage my counterparts in the Philippine government and in the private sector to maintain that vision so that we can continue to see progress year on year and allow Philippine women and the full potential of your diverse economy to truly flourish. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Now, let me now introduce one of the two main presenters this afternoon, ARTA Director General Jeremiah B. Belgica, appointed by President Duterte in July 2019. DG Mai, as we call him, is the youngest official holding a governmental position with a cabinet rank. He received his law degree from the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila and his bachelor's degree in science, major in biology from the University of Santo Tomas. He's also a licensed environmental planner. DG, you have the floor now.
Thank you very much, MamaGenie. It's always a pleasure seeing you, especially that your team, the UP Respond, through the help of USAID, has been a critical partner of ARTA. To Mr. Jeff Gobel, the Chief of OEDG of USAID Manila, to my co-speaker, Dr. Nathalie Africa Verceles, Director of UPCWGS, my fellow in government, Attorney Eileen L. Amor Bautista, SVP of the Credit Information Corporation, my friend and also fellow in government, Ms. Margie Santos, Head of the Quezon City Business Permitting Licensing Department, our dear panelist, Ms. Angelita Gloria of CRD Herbal Corporation, and Dr. Zarina Saloma Akpedonu, President of WSAP and Professor of Ateneo de Manila University. But last but definitely not the least, my favorite doctor and Professor Dr. Enrico L. Basilio, who is the Chief of Party of UPPAF Respond. A good afternoon to each and every one of us. I would be sharing to you today briefly about some of the gains and the initiatives of the Anti-Red Tape Authority when it comes to easing the business climate, particularly in starting a business, getting credit, and also registering property. May I please be allowed to share our presentation? Next slide, please. Starting with the reforms in the starting a business sector. Next slide, please. This sector has been one of the more challenging indicators for the Philippines in this past few years. A lot of things have been done, and indeed it is short of saying that the Philippines is very, very ambitious when it comes to the goals that we would want to achieve in the SAB indicator, that we are now undertaking a lot of reforms. Summary of the reforms that we have been doing is the removal of the notarization requirement, and also removal of the notarization fees, also the SEC registration reduction from 2 weeks to 3 days, and of course later it would be further be expanded and presented by the Quezon City on their business one-stop shops. Not only with Quezon City, but ARTA is also pushing for the automation of the business registration, starting a business and business registration of all LGUs by June 17, 2021. Next slide, please. As you could see, the Quezon City has already automated fully their starting a business. In the picture, Mayor Joy Belmonte, through her political will and her leadership, has successfully been able to launch the Quezon City Biz Easy last year. And only recently, they were able to finally come up with their electronic business permit, meaning there is no more need for Quezon City residents or business owners to get a physical copy of their business permits, since it would all be online and ready to be printed at any time. Next slide, please. Now, usually previously in the recent past, the current process for starting a business can actually be completed with 13 steps and 33 days according to the World Bank study. And in the screen, you could see the process and the different steps that a aspiring business owner would need to go through. Next slide, please. Now, the goal is to reduce the 13 steps to 1 step and to reduce the 33 days to not even 1 day or 1 day or less, or 0.5 day. And this would only be possible through the use of the online facility or the central business portal that ARTA and the other government agencies have been hard at work at. Next slide, please. Now, to give you an understanding, what is the central business portal? Now, this is the CBP was mandated to be created by law through the DICT's leadership and facility, which shall serve as the central system to receive applications and capture application data involving business-related transactions. It also involves the integration of many other features of different government agencies that are involved in the starting of a business. For business-related transactions, including primary and secondary licenses and business clearance, permits, and certifications or authorizations, which are issued by LGUs, as well as online registrations or applications, which are also established by NGAs. As you know, one of the real causes of red tape in the country or in any economy, as it is the silo system of operation. Government agencies, when they do not talk to each other, or government offices within an agency, when they do not communicate or tie up their processes together, would naturally result to a red tape system that only bears its full weight against the transacting public. This is the very reason for the enactment of Republic Act 11032, or the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act that ARTA is now implementing. Next slide, please. Now, for the phase 1 of the Central Business Portal, we already launched this last January 28, which already includes the unified application form for all agencies, the online registration with SEC, online registration with BIR, online generation of tax identification number for BIR, employer numbers for SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, as well as it also now provides for an online payment for BIR filing and registration fees, a unified employee reporting module for SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, which means employers may now file their report in unison only for these three social government social agencies, SS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. Also, issuance of secondary licenses of FDA's license to operate could already be accessed through the Central Business Portal, and the interfacing of the Central Business Portal with the Quezon City permitting licensing systems and 16 other LGUs with electronic business permitting licenses, including the Parañaque City Business Permitting System. Now, the goal is in the coming months, we would be able to integrate all other LGUs who already have their own electronic business one-stop shops. Next slide, please. To give us a very quick 2-minute video, let's watch this as an explanatory video of the Central Business Portal.
Registering a business in the Philippines can be very challenging. Applicants have to deal with heavy traffic, long lines, and difficult processes. The solution is online. The Central Business Portal is the Philippines' official platform for registering businesses in a faster and more convenient way. The creation of the Central Business Portal, or CBP, is mandated by Republic Act 11032, or the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018.
I reiterate my call for all government instrumentalities to implement systems that shall make physical queuing a thing of the past. Panahon na para mawala na ang pila, para mapagsilbihan ang gobyerno ng walang kahirapan para sa tao.
RA 11032 aims to eliminate red tape, graft, and corruption, promote transparency, and sustain ease of doing business. It provides transition from manual to software-enabled business-related applications. The CBP is a one-stop shop for all business-related transactions such as securing business permits, licenses, and clearances. The portal is being developed in phases. It features a unified application form and a user dashboard. At present, users can register corporation with one person and less than 5 incorporators, and regular corporations to SEC. Register and pay fees to BIR. Register and report initial employees list to SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. Apply for secondary permit or license to FDA. And access business permits and licensing system of pilot LGUs. Once the CBP is fully implemented, more features will be available and transactions will be completely online, allowing for easier, faster, and hassle-free registration of business. The Central Business Portal, the ease of doing business in the Philippines. Log on now at business.gov.ph.
Thank you very much for that video. So that gives a overview of the Central Business Portal, and we invite everyone to try and use the Central Business Portal, and please to give us a feedback. Please, next slide, please. Now, with that, I would no longer dwell with these features of the Central Business Portal. Needless to say, it already encapsulates the use of virtual and online facilities, online and digital payments, and submissions online, and also the tying up of the processes of the different government agencies. I would always say that before we automate and before we make things online, it's important that we first streamline, because we cannot automate without first streamlining the process. Otherwise, we run the risk of including in the automation program the redundant processes and requirements. And in short, we do not want to automate red tape itself. So the real challenge that the government agencies right now is tackling is the streamlining of their processes, which ARTA right now has conducted and has been shepherding and conducting an audit for all government agencies. All government agencies, by virtue of AO 23 or Administrative Order number 23, were required to submit to ARTA their streamlining initiatives. And ARTA is now going through their submissions, and many of them are already, that ARTA has already given their comment and recommendation to further their streamlining efforts. One such product is the Central Business Portal. Next slide, please. For the food and pharma, this is one of the more challenging, should I say, sector and a business registration process in the Philippines. We were able to integrate already the FDA's process on registering for the license to operate. So then the steps used to be 28 steps, now it's 9. The requirements used to be 41, and now it's 12. And the days used to be 63, but through the Central Business Portal, it will now be just 21. Next slide, please. ARTA does not only help in the streamlining, but we also act also as the enforcers. So we do surprise inspections Last January, ARTA inspected all LGUs of NCR and other LGUs outside the NCR to ensure and to know if whether they are indeed following the business one-stop shop model based on the memorandum circulars that ARTA and the other agencies have already issued. Next slide, please. So these are some of the pictures that we have been conducting, some of the inspections we have been conducting. As you could see, we are using both a physical inspection and virtual inspection also. Next slide, please. Virtual meaning I would be uh, uh, inspecting online with the other ARTA inspection team will be on the ground at the same time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We were also inspecting not only the national government agencies, the local government agencies, but also the different national government agencies. Next slide, please. As you can see, we also went to SSS and SM Ora, PRC Moraita, FDA in Alabang, and more recently is with the Land Transportation Regulatory Office, Regulatory Board, and the Bureau of Animal Industry. We also went to the Bureau of Immigration just recently, and we are doing this continually in the different government agencies. This could also result in one of the inspections, it resulted to the suspension of one government official chief of one of the agencies that we went to conduct a surprise inspection. Next slide, please. So this is also part of the functions of ARTA, the enforcement powers of ARTA. Now, going to the reforms in getting credit. Next slide, please. I will just be brief on this. So number one is the data sharing agreement between DTI and TransUnion. The DTI will be sharing publicly available business data on sole proprietors consisting of business name, business address, owner's name, date of registration, and business type. Also, the passage of RA 11057 or the Personal Property Security Act is a very vital initiative towards helping in getting credit for new businesses. Preference of credits over specific movable properties to all forms of security. A secured creditor may now take possession of the collateral without judicial process if it is provided in the security agreement, and the possession can be taken without a breach of the peace. Also, contracting parties are free to enter into any form of security arrangements over movable property. Next slide, please. Now, on some reforms on registering property, ARTA is hard at work also in helping reform, and make it more easier for the people to register their properties. One such initiative is the pilot establishment of LRA kiosk within Quezon City offices. The land titling computerization project that ARTA has been lately has been monitoring for the full implementation of the LRA and the Register of Deeds, and the issuance of the electronic certificate authorizing registration within 3 working days upon submission of complete documentary requirements, and also the creation of a Quezon City task force on registering property. Next slide, please. Now, we just want to say that this, although we have presented a very brief summary of the things that we are doing, this is in no way captures the great task and the great work that is ahead of ARTA. One such work is the program Nihimaya, or the national effort for the harmonization of efficiency measures of interrelated agencies, which we have seen its initial success through the streamlining of the processes for the building, for getting permits for the building of the telecommunications towers. Last year, it was reported that since the issuance of the joint memorandum circular 01-2020 that ARTA led together with the DICT and the other government agencies, it resulted to an increased more than 500% more permits were issued starting July last year until December, resulting to more or less about 10,000 more permits for the building of towers. This is the same thing that we're now doing with the logistics sector and also the housing sector. We do hope that for this coming year, we would always say that the train of reform against red tape is indeed on the move. On it are the hopes and the dreams of the Filipino people for a better, streamlined, e-governance centered Philippines. Anyone who would wish to go against this train of reform would simply be run over. Thank you very much, and congratulations to everyone.
Thank you very much, DG Mai. Now, let's have the second presentation by Dr. Natalie Natsi Africa Versailles, the director of the UP CWGS and an associate professor of the Department of Women Development Studies in UP Diliman. Natsi?
Yes. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. I hope everyone is safe and doing well amidst the unrelenting COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to greet all the women here, especially a very happy National Women's Month. Now I'm going to share my presentation po. Okay. I am here to present the highlights of the findings of the research project, Gender Analysis of Ease of Doing Business Policies and Procedures, conducted under the guidance and funding of the Women Global Development and Prosperity, or W-GDP program of the University of the Philippines Public Administration Research and Extension Services Foundation, Inc., Incorporated, Regulatory Reform Support Program for National Development, or UPPAF RESPOND. I will begin with the research design, present some background information on the topic, and then proceed to the findings. The main objective of the research is to assess ease of doing business policies and procedures in 3 RESPOND partner cities, namely Manila, Pasig, and Quezon City, from a gender and development perspective. Guided by the GAD framework, the specific objectives of the research were determined as follows. Describe the barriers faced by small and micro women entrepreneurs, identify EODB policies and procedures that alleviate and or aggravate these barriers, put forward recommendations that will address the identified barriers. The scope of the research was limited to 3 areas of EODB, namely starting a business, getting credit, and registering property, and to 3 LGUs, namely Manila, Pasig, and Quezon City. For our data gathering, we conducted key informant interviews from October to November 2020 with key officials in the LGUs, BIR, and DTI. We also held focus group discussions with women and men micro and small entrepreneurs and women's groups promoting women and entrepreneurship, including the PCW, or the Philippine Commission on Women. We focused on the micro and small entrepreneurs because they have considerably less resources to withstand the negative impacts of any efficiencies in business regulatory processes. We also did an extensive desk review of related literature and policies to properly contextualize the findings from our key informant interviews and focus group discussions. Gender and development as an analytical framework comes from an analysis that the effects of development policies and programs such as EODB are not the same for women and men, and that almost all the time, the needs and interests of women are marginalized. In this regard, a gender analysis of EODB needs problematizing of EODB itself. We interrogate the underlying assumptions of EODB. If EODB creates an enabling environment for businesses and entrepreneurs, will every business or entrepreneur benefit from the current conception and implementation of EODB? If EODB promotes socio-economic development, will everyone benefit? In the first place, what does an enabling environment for women-led enterprises and women entrepreneurs look like? In order to create an enabling environment for them, there is a need to take stock of their situation within the current context of MSMEs and EODB in the country. This is what is known in the literature. Majority of business entities in the country are MSMEs. More than half of them are owned by women, and that numerous, repetitive, and time-consuming procedures in business regulation are recognized by the government itself as one of the most common barriers experienced by MSMEs. We also know that women face more barriers in starting, sustaining, and growing their businesses compared to men. These include lack of access to resources, limited social support, and family constraints. Because of this, it is not surprising that women-led enterprises suffer from higher rates of discontinuance and exhibit lower growth expectations. In terms of EODB, the World Bank reported that the Philippines has seen major improvements in its business regulatory environment. However, we are still way behind high-income economies. Based on the EODB Index report in 2019, and I quote, an entrepreneur in a low-income economy typically spends about 50% of income per capita to launch a company, compared to just 4.2% for an entrepreneur in a high-income economy, end quote. The Philippine Development Plan for 2017 to 2022 puts a heavy emphasis on MSME development and women's entrepreneurship as key drivers of socio-economic growth. Based on the findings of the research, there is much to be done in the business regulatory environment if these objectives are to be met. I will now discuss the EODB issues and challenges faced by women entrepreneurs that make it challenging for them to start and sustain their businesses. We begin with the area of starting a business. Across all the areas of EODB considered in the research, starting a business, getting credit, and registering property, these are the clear assumptions among most government offices. First, women entrepreneurs are no different from men entrepreneurs. Second, women-led micro and small enterprises are no different from other businesses. And third, women entrepreneurs are homogeneous. However, this is clearly not the case, as 1, MSMEs operate with various levels of resources. 2, women entrepreneurs suffer from time poverty and increased workload due to having to perform multiple roles, including care work performed in households. 3, women-led enterprises suffer from higher rates of discontinuance and exhibit lower growth expectations. And 4, startups, the status of most women-led enterprises are less profitable and more likely to fold up. Without considering these, the regulatory environment continues to be a major barrier to the sustainability of women's enterprises. Despite the enactment of the EODB EGSD Act of 2018 and the accompanying reforms mandated by the law, women entrepreneurs continue to face formidable constraints in navigating the business regulatory environment, primarily due to the unconsolidated processes and information between national government agencies and local government units, and between the local government units and their ancillary units. Moreover, there is a limited awareness on EODB measures that they can utilize, such as the Citizens Charter and the Department of Trade and Industry's negosyo centers. Sabi nga ng isang participant, as one participant said, hinuhulaan ang proseso. Wait, I have to ano po ha. I think there was a... The process involves guesswork. Complex and disjointed business processes exacerbate the time poverty and workload of women who do not just manage the business, but also perform a disproportionate share of unpaid care work in households. While both men and women have to deal with corruption activities in the government, women's feelings of frustration and disempowerment because of these are compounded by prejudicial treatment on the basis of their gender. The differential treatment of male and female entrepreneurs was made startlingly clear during an FGD participated in by men and women. A male entrepreneur with businesses in Pasig and Quezon City narrated how his wife suffered because of the difficulties she encountered while doing the business processing in Pasig. Pinahirapan siya, umiiyak siya. They made it difficult for her. She was crying. When his wife could no longer bear it, he took over and was able to expedite the process through bribery. Pag hindi ka naglagay, pahihirapan ka nila. Uupuan nila kasi alam nila magbabayad ka pa ng upa. If you don't pay bribes, they will make it difficult for you. They will sit on the documents because they know that you're paying rent. The sole woman entrepreneur in the group re-echoed this pattern, this time in Quezon City. The arduous experience of business permit processing suddenly becomes faster if it is her husband who deals with it. She wondered, paano niya nagagawa na hindi ko nagagawa? How can he do what I cannot do? Both women and men entrepreneurs suffer from the largely undifferentiated treatment by the state of businesses and entrepreneurs. Small and micro entrepreneurs find the regulatory requirements and fees, especially with the BIR, incompatible with the limited resources of their businesses. Due to the expectation that women are household managers, managing the family budget falls on them. This makes them more sensitive to undue regulatory burdens, such as these do not only impact the profitability of the business, but also the financial status of the family. One participant expressed the wish of the women entrepreneurs in the study. Sana simple lang yung paraan ng paniningil nila. Tulong lang namin sa gobyerno. Hindi sana buong kita namin. I wish that they could make tax collection simpler, that what we pay in taxes is just to help the government and not have them appropriate our entire profit. We also looked into the area of getting credit, and we found that women's loan values are comparatively lower than men. They mostly borrow from MFIs, which has a cap of 150,000 pesos in accordance with the law, and that the co-signatory requirement for loans is burdensome for separated and annulled women and victim survivors of gender-based violence. It is worth raising here that the study found a gender imbalance in spousal support received by male and female entrepreneurs. Married male entrepreneurs enjoy consistent levels of support from their spouses compared to their female counterparts. For the latter, the responses of their husbands to their businesses ranged from supportive to hostile. While improvements in the credit reporting system of the country initiated by the Credit Information Corporation and the DTI promise greater access to credit among women entrepreneurs through the documentation of their credit history that could serve as a basis for the establishment of their credit worthiness, the study has surfaced barriers to the formal documentation of women's credit history, which could facilitate their application for higher loan amounts in the future for the purpose of sustaining and growing their business. The mental stress associated with loans is a factor in women's willingness to avail of credit. As previously described, women entrepreneurs perform multiple tasks as primary caregivers, household managers, and of course, business owners. Thus, their stronger aversion to credit compared to the male participants due to the associated mental stress from loan repayments is understandable. This illustrates the need to address gender issues across institutions, including the household, if the aim is to increase the survivability and growth of women-led enterprises through access to credit. Even if the interest rates are very low or the documentary requirements are easy to comply with, women will be discouraged from taking out loans if it means an additional mental burden for them. A related finding in this area is that the convenience afforded by informal creditors make them more appealing to women. Among the participants, a higher percentage of men are more open to and have actually availed of credit from banks and government loan programs, such as those being offered by SP Corp and DOST. If and when women entrepreneurs acquire loans for their businesses, their number one preference is family members. This was not evident among the male participants. Loans from family members offer unparalleled convenience as they have flexible payment terms and require no processing. We now proceed to registering property. The following documented issues of women in registering property need to be considered. First, women entrepreneurs experience different levels of support from their spouses, ranging from active involvement to hostility. In comparison, men enjoy consistent support from spouses. This has serious implications in the ability of women entrepreneurs to use conjugal properties as collateral for high-value loans. Second, undocumented land ownership in the country is more prevalent among women. The second needs to be considered in the business registration process, as the study surfaced that those with undocumented properties have actually faced issues when they registered, as the LGUs only accept lease of contract if the property is rented, or tax declarations if the property is owned. Based on the desk review, the study also found that women have less decision-making power over conjugal properties in law and in practice. Under the Philippine Civil Code, without a prenuptial agreement, women and men have equal property rights, as any property acquired under cohabitation should be shared equally under the couple's conjugal relationship. However, in practice, Filipino men were found to exercise greater exclusive rights on conjugal properties compared to women, according to a study by the Asian Development Bank in Cavite. Moreover, Article 96 and 124 of the Family Code of the Philippines are in clear violation of women's property rights by stating that in cases of disagreements of conjugal property, the husband's decision shall prevail. The study also conducted an assessment of EODB policies and procedures in Manila, Pasig, and Quezon City. These are the highlights of the findings. There is uneven implementation of the key provisions of the EODB law, as seen on the slide. To contextualize this finding, Quezon City has been receiving technical assistance from international development agencies and national government agencies, because it is the representative city of the Philippines in the EODB index. Meanwhile, Pasig and Manila have just recently received assistance to implement EODB in their LGUs. Although the three cities included in the study have ordinances promoting women in development, Quezon City has the most supportive policy environment for women entrepreneurs due to the presence of ordinances that support both women entrepreneurs and small and micro enterprises, such as the Women Entrepreneurship Ordinance and the Magna Carta for Micro and Small Enterprises, which paved the way for the creation of the Small Business and Cooperatives Development Promotions Office, or SBCDPO. Across all of the LGUs, a narrow appreciation of EODB was observed, such that gender is not seen as an EODB issue. The common response of key informants when asked about common gender issues is that there are none. For gender-related problems, wala po akong na-encounter, was a quotation. I have not encountered any. It's mostly general issues. I don't see any gender-related problems. We treat them equally, even if you're a male or a female. At times, gender issues are reduced to stereotyping women as the weaker sex. Because of overcrowding during January, the registration season, some informants opine that, and I quote, "Kawawa po dito ang mga babae. The women are pitiful here." EODB is equated with efficiency meant to generate revenue and bureaucratic control, instead of promoting social inclusion by promoting the entrepreneurial activities of women and men. As a result, mechanisms that will ease the burden of regulation among women entrepreneurs are few and far between, and not without issues. The LGUs also face entrenched systems in business permit and licensing system, characterized by corruption and offices that work in silos. Lastly, considering that the EODB law was recently enacted in 2018 and the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country in 2020, the reforms in place are still at a nascent stage of implementation. The LGUs grapple not only with technical issues, but also with resistance from government employees and officials. There are also issues and challenges unique to the LGUs. Manila was reported by the informants to have a poor reputation in EODB. A key informant described the people of Manila as, and I quote, sabay sanay na mahirap yung proseso, or used to difficult processes, who have suffered from, and I quote again, generations of heartache. If Manila has an image problem, Pasig must contend with political transition. Corruption was reported to be so ingrained in the LGU that its eradication is going to take some time. For Quezon City, the challenge is also political, as resistance from the ancillary departments became apparent when the virtual boss was introduced. For instance, at the time of the interview, one of the departments had yet to log into the system since it was first launched, even though they were alerted that there were pending requests assigned to their office. While it is important to recognize that women can survive and even prosper under the current state of affairs, as described above, it does not take away the fact that a large proportion of women-led enterprises suffer from business discontinuance, and that the effects of undue regulatory burdens weigh much more heavily upon them and their businesses. In fact, many of the women entrepreneurs in the study hire the services of a third service provider in order to successfully navigate the regulatory environment. Of course, not everyone has the means to afford outsourcing. Fortunately, there are institutions where women entrepreneurs could find support. DTI's Barangay Micro Business Enterprise BMBE accreditation was lauded by the participants for the efficient processing of the certification, allowing them to enjoy the incentives accorded by the BMBE law. Another DTI program, the Kapatid Mentor Me, has provided practical tools and relief from the mental stress and helped them survive the COVID-19 pandemic. Though not without problems, the Small Business Corporation, an attached corporation of the DTI, has made business loan applications more convenient for MSMEs due to reduced requirements compared to commercial banks, as well as lower interest rates. In the LGUs, the QC SBC DPO remains active in providing mentorship and marketing services and financial assistance to MSMEs even during the pandemic. Their Kalingang QC sa Negosyo stimulus program provides salary support to employees of MSMEs. Participants in the FGD cited the necessity to provide salaries to employees even with less or no business income as one of the major challenges they faced at the height of the pandemic. They stated that they do not want their employees to lose their jobs. And of course, let's not forget the formal and informal communities of women. They are a source of invaluable support for their businesses as they facilitate the dissemination of information on programs and services available. NGOs, additionally, perform the vital work of advocating for the promotion and protection of women entrepreneurs and the development of SMEs, MSMEs in the country. However, it is to be noted that consistent with the literature, the majority of the participants are not formally organized, thereby limiting their capacity to influence the regulatory environment. As of the moment, the direction of reforms in the regulatory environment is heavily directed by the indicators promoted in the World Bank's EODB index. We have an exhaustive list of recommendations in the study, but as we do not have time to discuss them in detail, I will share two principles that guided the creation of these recommendations in order to make EODB work for women. First, there should be due consideration of the issues and challenges of the MSME sector as well as the differentiated needs of entrepreneurs based on gender and stages of entrepreneurial activity in implementing EODB reforms. We have to rethink EODB in line with the current development goals of the country to promote MSME development and increase the entrepreneurial activities of women. We also have to consider the commitments that our country has made to international covenants and the national policies and laws that guarantee equal rights for women, not just in law, but also in practice. Second, there is a need to raise the level of consciousness of government officials and employees, and even the entrepreneurs themselves who are unable to see that unequal gender relations in society cut across different spaces, including the regulatory environment, and that these have dire effects on women. Women entrepreneurs as rights holders must be able to assert what is due to them. Government officials and employees as duty bearers must internalize that their responsibility is first and foremost to uphold the rights of the people through public service that is inclusive and gender responsive. Gender responsive EODB policies and procedures can contribute to the attainment of national economic goals. At the same time, and just as importantly, it can promote women's empowerment, gender justice, and gender equality. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
You really kept to the time.
I did, ma'am. I really did.
Yeah. Now, we're supposed to move to the panel discussion now, but DG Belgica has to leave in a few minutes. So I beg your indulgence by posing at least two questions for DG Mai before he goes. I hope you don't mind.
Yes, Ma'am Jeannie. Yes,
Yes, darling. The questions that now where is it? What question has to do with is ARTA doing an audit of government entities on their business processes, on whether they have implemented efforts to streamline, to shorten, or to get a process less difficult for clientele, and even to erase the silo approach?
Thank you for that question, Ma'am Jeannie. First, I just want to thank the co-speaker, Dr. Natalie Africa Verceles. Thank you, ma'am, for the great presentation, and we would surely would want to know more about your research and study. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Kaming recommendations, kailangan nyo i-implement yun.
Yeah, we hope to get the entire. We'll have another time, ma'am, with you. Thank you.
No problem. DG Mai, we will have a session with ARTA.
Yes, please. Ma'am Jeannie, going back to your to the questions, yeah, the answer is yes. There are two ways that ARTA has been conducting an audit. No, first is all government agencies are required to submit their updated Citizens Charter. Now, the Citizens Charter aspect of our work was not part of my presentation earlier for limited time, but this is a very important factor when we are trying to address the pains of redundancy and red tape, because the Citizens Charter actually is the list of your rights, of the citizens' rights against abuse when it comes to transacting with government agencies. Because in the Citizens Charter, they're listed the minimum, or the maximum rather, the maximum number of permits or requirements, documents, fees that you are expected to submit, and you expect the government agencies to require from you. No, wag mong dadagdagan, wag mong babawasan yung requirements na yan. And also in that citizens charter, it should be indicated the processing times on how fast that they should be able to act on those applications. Otherwise, those applications are already automatically deemed approved by operation of law. We're not saying here again that all applications should be um, approved. What we're saying here, what the law now is saying, the EODB law is now saying that all applications must be acted upon within a prescribed processing time. Kasi kung if you don't act on it, then definitely it would be deemed automatically approved so long as it is fully compliant with the Citizens Charter. Now, all government agencies were required to submit this updated Citizens Charter that would already should be complying with the 3720 rule, meaning all government processes, all government transactions should be classified as either simple, complex, or highly technical. There is no government transaction that is existing that has no classification, whether simple, complex, or highly technical. If it's simple, 3 days, complex, 7 days, highly technical, then it is 20 days. So out of the 11,000 government agencies, around 8,000, no? Mga 70 to 80%, or rather 75%, around 75% have already submitted to ARTA their updated Citizens Charter, and we have been um, um, making some recommendations on the Citizens Charters that are required to be posted. Now, second is as I mentioned during my presentation, the AO 23, the Administrative Order number 23 that was issued by the President last year, February last year, requiring all government agencies to submit their streamlining initiatives to ARTA. And ARTA is required to submit our recommendations and comments on those submitted streamlining efforts by March 19 to the Office of the President. So yes, so these things are already being done. But the more important thing, Ms. Jeannie, here is capacitating the government agencies to have a better regulators mindset. We cannot really finish all of the work by monitoring all of the 11,000. But if you would include all of the barangays plus 42,000 barangays, and see if they have really streamlined 100%, they should be the ones who should be streamlining their processes. And ARTA, through the regulatory impact assessment trainings, are already capacitating them to have a better regulators mindset, no? Sort of mabigyan natin sila ng skills to have what you call a self-assessment tools na tama ba, is this regulation overbearing, is it burdensome, is it repetitive, all of those things, because for the longest time government regulators have been very good at regulating and over-regulating. But now it's now time for us not to be just deregulators, but become better regulators. That is actually the goal of ARTA here.
Okay, thank you very much. The other, actually, another point was a comment made by one of the participants, which is how will ARTA be able to help women business owners or even women-led corporations when LGU processes continue being unclear and not streamlined?
Yeah, that is also part of what we were saying about the Citizens Charter. The Citizens Charter, for some might sabihin nila na matagal na naman yan 2007 pa yan. Yeah, but it's different. The implementation now is different and we're more stricter. And before, it's just a tarpaulin that they put somewhere that would
In the office.
even be used as as a cover when the sun goes up and it's too hot. So, but now we are really making sure that the Citizens Charter would really serve its purpose. So that is the posting requirement for all government agencies in a conspicuous place that is open for everybody and should also be posted in their web page, should be followed strictly. Now, we have currently sent out notices of warning to the other government agencies who have yet to submit to us their citizens charter, and w- let it be let this serve as a notice to them that if they do not submit to us, then we have no choice but to forward this list to the office of the ombudsman. But most of them have already submitted to ARTA, but some who have submitted to ARTA, when we inspected, they have not really posted it clearly as we would wish. So the Citizens Charter again is very very useful for very
Hello? Nag-freeze. Digimai, I think you lost connection. Yeah, I know. I think Digi Belgica is encountering internet problems. So thank you very much, Digimai. I think we'll need to move on now to the panel discussion, but it's important to remind people that they can always check the Citizens Charter in the agency's websites or in the ARTA website. Uh, okay, I think the Citizens Charter is found. You can look for it in their websites. Now, of course, the question is who monitors them against the Citizens Charter. Now, we shall now call on the first panel discussant. And thank you very much, Margie, for joining us. I know that you have another appointment with ARTA. Margie is the head of the Quezon City Business Permit Licensing Department and officer in charge of the Market and Administrative Department. She holds a Master's in Public Administration or MPA degree from the Trinity University of Asia. We invited Quezon City to the panel because of the many things that it can share with other LGUs who have representatives uh, you attending the webinar. Angie, JC, Angie's on now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. I'm really honored because I'm really not so used to being presenters or a panelist in in discussions in webinars such as this. So I've actually existed for some time, but only in the background. So I normally shy away from large webinars just like this, but I'm happy to share with you the reforms that we have made in Quezon City over the last 2 years since we took office in July 2019. So it was not an easy task for us because really there was so many things to fix, so many things to put together and align with the ease of doing business law. But slowly but surely, we have done significant reforms and implemented a lot of automation we have automated most of our processes, but it's still a work in progress, and we're still looking at other LGUs, trying to replicate their best practices into the system that we have built for Quezon City, so that within the next couple of months, or at least when the deadline for the full implementation of the ease of doing business law arrives in June 2017, we are ready, and we can say that we are now 100% fully compliant. So may I be allowed to share my screen, because I updated the presentation I sent you yesterday. So please, may I be allowed? Okay. So here. Thank you. So our program is called QC Biz Easy. Okay, this is an automated system of business permitting here in Quezon City. Let me show you the short video that we have prepared when we launched this program in October 2020.
Boss, a short four-letter word that has made a big and lasting impact on how business is done in Quezon City. Just like any boss in the business, it has led the way to making effective changes and improvements towards the development of the organization. With the newly revamped and improved Business One-Stop Shop, what was once a grueling task for business owners is now simpler and easier. All departments involved in reviewing and validating new business registrations and renewals are now housed under one roof for the convenience of each applicant. Now, all applications can be evaluated and approved in one go. Business owners no longer need to get lost trying to find the offices of the different departments. Together with the complete overhaul of the city's BOSS, business owners no longer have to deal with multiple application forms from each department. The business permit application form has been unified for convenience. This also acts as a deterrent for fixers who sell application forms to unknowing applicants. Aside from the new unified application form, the business permit itself now features an e-signature of the approving authority for more efficiency, secured by a distinct QR code to prevent fraudulent permits. Complementing these changes are improvements and enhancements on physical structures and other processes. With the new normal, the city has made agile innovations to look after the safety of its constituents. An appointment system has been deployed to minimize face-to-face interactions. Another tool being utilized now is the e-response system, where taxpayers' queries are promptly addressed and answered via various social media platforms. QC Boss doesn't stop there. It evolves to something even better. QC Boss is now made available online. Now, business owners can apply for permits at the comfort of their homes or offices, monitor status of application, and have their permits delivered right at their doorstep, allowing business owner applicants to do the whole process without having to step foot in City Hall. This online application form is but a glimpse of what's to come. Because in QC, biz is easy.
Expect more changes to unfold from us as we endeavor to continue striving to better our performance and contribute towards the creation of a more enabling business environment in Quezon City.
BOSS create enabling environment for retaining businesses and attract investments. As a result, it will create more jobs and alleviate the poverty in the city.
This is the future of doing business with Quezon City. You wouldn't want to miss being part of this innovation. The city, together with its business owners, magkakasama tayong lahat sa pag-unlad ng ating lungsod, where biz is easy.
Okay, sorry. And now that you've watched that video, I'd like to show you the user interface for our online business permitting process. Okay, this is the user interface. So we've put together all the automated service of the Quezon City government under one portal, which is the QCE services. Um, Allow me to change my screen to the actual portal. Okay, this is the actual portal of the QCE services. It's so easy to log in. You can register your email, or you can use your Google, your Gmail account, your Facebook account, or even your Apple ID to register. I will use my Gmail. And then as you can see, there are different thumbnails here. We have the Q Citizen ID e-application for Quezon City residents and even non-residents. This is where we store our data on people who would want to be vaccinated in Quezon City, the residents and those who work here. And then there's the business one-stop shop, the building permit one-stop shop, the occupational permit, the health certificate and sanitary permit, and then the RPT payment. But I'll focus more on the business one-stop shop. In the business one-stop shop, okay, this is, you'll be directed here. So people get confused. In Quezon City, business owners get confused because the liaison officers sometimes don't understand how the online application or online system works. Most of them thinks that the online system is setting an appointment to personally submit your application. So we really have to address this issue because we've been receiving complaints that people have to set appointments to submit application, and then get an appointment again to get a copy of their permit, but they don't realize or they don't bother to check the portal itself. So when you submit, we have three options in submitting your business permit applications. One is that you submit online. Here it is. And then second is the Dropbox service, where you give us all the documents and then we upload it into the system ourselves. You just drop it off, you leave, and then we notify you via email. Or here, you set an appointment to submit your application to the boss counter, where when you submit this, the good thing about this is, even though you have to wait long for an appointment, because in Quezon City, we have 90,000, close to 90,000 business establishments. So it's really hard to accommodate them all at once. That's why we have to space out the appointments. So, but even if you wait for an appointment date, when you go to the business one-stop shop, you get the permit before, once you leave the boss. But I'll show you the online application. Okay, so here you'll see the new renewal, amendment, and short-term special permit. I'll click on new because I believe most of our audiences are those interested to put up their businesses. So we only require 3 documents initially, which is the proof of business registration with the DTI and SEC, or for cooperatives, the CDA. And then a contract of lease or tax declaration. I note po the observation or the findings of Dr. Natalie's study earlier regarding this issue of contract of lease and tax declaration. And we've discovered a lot of things regarding proof of ownership. That's why we really want to ensure and the protection of property owners in Quezon City. So this is really, really material in getting your permit. And then the sketch and photos of location of business. And then we remind business owners, would-be business owners, that the barangay clearance must be complied with 30 days upon grant of permit. And then this is subject also to permissibility evaluation of the zoning administration unit, so that manufacturing of plastics don't put put up businesses inside subdivisions, and then subject to proof of ownership or use of property by the city assessor's office, and then subject to occupancy permit verification by the Department of Building official. This is to ensure that the building or the premises is safe to the public. Okay, and then an authorization letter, which we have professionalized, so we no longer accept handwritten authorization letter that can be discarded with, or sometimes fake pa by representatives. And then the accomplished unified form signed by the owner, scanned, and then valid ID. And then once you're ready, you just proceed and fill up the application online. So you don't have to finish it at in one sitting, because if you still don't have all the information, you just save it as draft and come back when you have when you're ready to finish the application. But once you're done, you just click continue, and then presto, you've already submitted your business permit application. All you have to do is wait for email notifications from the various ancillary clearances on the status of your application. And then we also send the tax assessment bill, the initial payment for business permit application to your email, which you could in turn pay at various business centers of the Quezon City government. At the moment, we have 8 spread over several malls in Quezon City. And then after you've paid, you just email to us again the proof of payment. And then after that, we review we review for finally your application. And then once approved, we send to you the e-copy of your business permit. Okay? But for renewal, we only have here's the renewal process. You just need to provide us with the mayor's permit number, a scanned copy of your previous permit, your official receipt number, and then fill out all these details, and then proceed. Once you've proceeded, you've already submitted your renewal application. Okay. Let's see. Next, I'll change my screen again, ha. Sorry. Oh, sorry. There. Okay. Okay. So this is the copy of our this is the e-copy of our digital business permit. So we send this to business owners now. Okay, but since this is still our system is still quite new, and we still encounter birth pains along the way, we have a roadmap naman on where we will be within the next couple of months. Siguro by June, we'll have simultaneous issuance of ancillary clearances together with the business permits. We've been pushing for this. And as noted in again by Dr. Natalie earlier, some of the ancillary offices really quite slow in automating their systems, but since BPLD has taken the lead, medyo po nagbumilis po yung kanilang proseso, and bumilis din po yung kanilang automation roadmap. Then, and also, we are now in the process of integrating the barangay clearances. So now you don't have to go back to the barangay to get your clearance, or even pay for your barangay clearance. And also, we are working on an online business tax evaluation, assessment, and payment, para po talagang lahat po ay online na po talaga sa Quezon City. And also, we're also working on integrating the zoning map within the QCB's EC program, because in Quezon City, the city assessor already has a unified geographical information system that BPLD has a layer, and also zoning. So when you apply, you just I'll copy the Valenzuela model that you just pin the location of your business, and then once that system detects that it's in a permissible zone, you don't need to secure a locational clearance anymore. Okay, I just would like to share with you the statistics on gender ownership in Quezon City, business ownership in Quezon City. Excuse me. Sorry. This is our at the total business establishment as of December 31, 2020 is 80,823. Sorry po. And out of that 80,823, 15,119 are owned by females. So 18.71%. But here's the thing. For this year's renewal, talaga pong maagap ang mga babae pagdating sa pagninegosyo. Kaya po, sa data po na nakita namin this early, 41.94% ng mga nakapag-renew na ay babae po. So talaga pong napakaagap nating mga babae, and nakakatuwa po because we believe that these women have already migrated online na rin po. Kaya po siguro nauna sila. Yan po. Yan. So, yun po. Thank you very much po. And I hope kung may questions po kayo later, I'll be glad to answer po.
Thank you very much, Margie. Now, for our second discussant, we have the Senior Vice President for Business Development and Communications Group of the Credit Information Corporation, Attorney Eileen L. Amor Bautista, or as friends call her, Ala. She was a member of the technical working group that developed the standards and rules for accrediting credit bureaus such as TransUnion of the CIC. Okay, Ala?
Hi, good morning, Miss Jean. Good morning, everyone. I will just have to, yes, I will just have to operate my video. Wait. So, there. Thank you. There. Can everyone see me? Just to provide a brief background to our participants who are not yet familiar about the Credit Information Corporation, or the CIC. It is a government-owned and controlled corporation. It's created by law, Republic Act number 9510, or the Credit Information System Act. And all lenders are required to submit the data of their borrowers to the CIC. And as of today, the CIC now has 24 million borrowers. And it is the only public credit registry and leading provider of independent, reliable, and accurate credit information in the Philippines. And the reason for the creation of this law is because in the Philippines, as we know, there has been an excessive dependence on collateral to secure credit facilities. And it has been an ongoing concern and challenge for micro, small, and medium enterprises. And being the largest credit database now, with the most diverse set of contributors in the Philippines, we are now covering the average Filipino. And not just those who have credit cards, but even the unbanked and the underbanked are now in our system. And now the key questions to be asked are: first, do lenders have credit information on entrepreneurs or aspiring business owners seeking credit? And second, are borrowers still dependent on physical assets as collateral, most especially women? And in response to the statement earlier of presentation of Dr. Natalie, the CIC encourages the use of all data from databases as long as these data used is factual and positive, both positive and negative information. Getting credit is an active process where you want to look for the best rates. While it may appear to be convenient and attractive to get loans from informal lenders, but taking the time to explore other nearby options like microfinance institutions or MFIs and the cooperatives will either remove the stress of high interest payments or provide support from the lenders themselves. As cooperatives and the MFIs, they tend to have an advocacy component. Now for male, they have a formal workplace. First, proof of employment, that is employment certificate. And the second, proof of income, that is they have payslip. And third, they even have formal ID, tax identification number or TIN, social security system number, or for those employed in the government, they have GSIS ID. But for female who are mostly home-based work or business, first, they do not have a proof of employment. And second, they do not have a proof of income. And in most cases, they do not even have formal IDs. So at present, on male versus female footprint, a certificate of employment is equivalent to a proof of ability to generate income. And the CIC credit report can still serve as a proof of credit worthiness or the ability to pay financial obligations, especially in the case of women entrepreneurs. And a credit report that we are promoting refers to the summary of consolidated information on a creditworthiness, credit standing, credit capacity, character, and other relevant information as submitted by the financial institutions they deal with. And it contains consolidated positive and negative credit data. What we are seeing now in our database, where we both have positive and negative data from MFIs, cooperatives, and rural banks, have been submitted. There are 76,261 male borrowers, or 23% out of the total 324,942 individual borrowers, whose purpose of borrowing was for business loans. And there are 248,681 female borrowers, or 77% of these total individual borrowers. That is coming from the 576 financial institutions, including universal banks, commercial banks, and even credit card issuers, thrift banks, rural banks, cooperatives, and those government institutions that are now submitting data to the CIC. And these are all active accounts. The list is also on our CIC website. And credit data such as loans, housing loans, car loans, and other more typical credit transactions offer CIC data users a better view of true credit behaviors versus predominantly credit cards-based database in the Philippines. And the primary ID, an enhancement that we have introduced in the CIC last year in 2020 to become more inclusive to the borrowers of microfinance institutions, cooperatives, and rural banks, whose borrowers may not even have IDs of TIN, SSS, or GSIS. Our database now is accepting a unified multipurpose ID, or UMID, and driver's license, and further expanding the coverage of the CIC database. The average Filipino, not just those who are banked, but also the unbanked and underbanked, including women who are mostly borrowers from microfinance institutions, are now covered by our database for our getting credit, ease of doing business milestones. Currently, the CIC is maintaining and managing the receiving, processing, securing, and storing of financial credit data of these over 24 million Filipino borrowers and 80 million contract data in the CIC database. And this is across all the 576 financial institutions submitting data to us, with 102 accessing entities that are using our credit reports. The CIC credit report is also now available online through CIBI app, a credit bureau application, which also provides credit scores. And we are inviting the public to please get a copy of your CIC credit report with a credit score online through CIBI Information Inc., one of our accredited credit bureaus, together with CRIF and TransUnion. CIBI recently launched its CIBI app, where individuals may register and create an account online, either through their desktops or mobile phones, anytime. And this is anytime, anywhere. And also another milestone, the online dispute resolution process, where we have a technical assistance also with UPPAF. Thank you to Dr. Henry, to Dr. Mario. The online dispute resolution process is a mode where a borrower can correct the outdated or erroneous information in his or her credit report. And for women entrepreneurs and the CIC credit report, we have the Toyota Financial Services, one of the accessing entities of the CIC. They were able to grant revolving credit facility even without requiring collateral. And the key factor here is good credit history with no negative findings as assessed by Toyota Financial Services. And we also have Union Bank is also an accessing entity of the CIC and was able to extend loans to women entrepreneurs because of good credit standing. And these are just two of our accessing entities that are able to make use of our database. So now that we have this credit data sharing in the Philippines with both positive and negative information, we can now promote credit score for efficient loan transaction and approvals. And the overall availability of credit, especially to micro, small, and medium enterprises, even women in the Philippines, is expected to improve. And it will also help reduce overall credit risk. And it would contribute more to a healthier and more stable financial ecosystem. Our message now to the consumers, particularly women, please let us be empowered and check our credit report for lenders. Please go beyond compliance and access and assess your borrowers carefully. Let us promote responsible borrowing and responsible lending. This ends my presentation, Ms. Jean. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ala. Now, from an LGU to a government agency that can play is playing a very important role in improving women's access to credit. Now we shall go to an entrepreneur. Okay, Miss Angela Gloria. I kept on calling her Angel earlier. Is a Quezon City-based entrepreneur. She serves as the Director for Business Development and Marketing of CID Herbal Corporation, and is also the Managing Director of Sky Coast Enterprises. Before opening her own business, she had decades of experience in different capacities in the food and beverage industry with San Miguel Corporation and its subsidiary companies as well. Subsidiary companies as well as with Rustan Supermarkets. Angela has a master's degree from the Ateneo de Manila University and an undergraduate degree in Communication Arts from the University of Santo Tomas. Angela?
Thank you for the introduction and a blessed day, everyone. I would like to mention that I represent two business entities. Company A is a sole proprietorship and
Yeah.
Company B is a corporation.
Uh,
I'll be sharing this afternoon my experiences as an entrepreneur. This covers the period 2018 to present in dealing with the regulations of the different government agencies and how we manage to cross some of the barriers. My presentation shares the challenges we encountered and how we surmounted the obstacles. First slide, please. Once a business concept has been finalized, taking it to the next level is the business name registration. The sole proprietorship entity is applied with DTI, and this is quite easy and simple. It will be best to visit their official website to check if the names that you choose are already registered or is being used, and we can be guided by the policies on what business names are registrable. In case where we are unable to pay online, payments can be made to their nearest negosyo center or satellite outlets. DTI did not accept the payment from my representative and had to go back to get an authorization letter for this simple over-the-counter payment. Just a friendly reminder to make sure that our representatives bring an authorization letter from you. The processing of our business name registration with DTI was easy and fast, and we didn't encounter any problems with DTI, and we got the certificates immediately. Next, please. For partnerships and corporations, let us also visit their Philippine SEC website to check if your chosen names is already registered. Similar to DTI, this will shorten the initial process. There are more paperworks and legworks to register a corporation. So we engaged the services of a reputable company to handle the processing, and a notarized SPA was needed here for the representative. The processing time, assuming all requirements are in place, is from 10 to 15 working days. Next, please. With BIR, the challenge we always encounter is the number of open cases we have, even when we are compliant to the timely electronic filing, submission, and payment of our returns. An example would be the e-filing of our monthly 1601C forms that constantly appear as an open case due to the branch's system's upgrade or when their system is down. According to them, the submissions are not captured and updated. It is for this reason that we should closely check our electronic files, print out the acknowledgements and returns from BIR as proof of our submission and payment. This is submitted to the Revenue District Office with a cover letter requesting for the cancellation of the open cases. It is very important to periodically verify with BIR status of our company to check if there are new open cases. We conduct this at least every quarter so corrective actions can be done immediately. This will avoid and reduce penalties and cases are resolved. As owners, we should also conduct our regular audit to ensure that payments and remittances are accurate, paid in time, covered with receipts, and organized in a filing system. I also suggest not to totally empower our accountants. And most of us here, we hire freelance accountants to also avoid any irregularities in the future. In addition, should certain business close in the future, all open cases should also be settled before any clearances is given. Next slide, please. Under SSS, one of the challenges is our need to change the password every 6 months. If you miss the date, or if their system is down at the time you have to make the change, It will require going through a new login process with SSS, and your payment reference number or PRN will not be generated. Since SSS have several platforms available to assist both employers and employees, our concerns were immediately addressed and resolved. The common challenge we have with the three agencies, namely SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, is the time-consuming payment processing. Over time, we were able to identify the best day and time to make the payments, and this is in the morning of the second working day of the week. Next, please. With PhilHealth, the challenge here is the additional step after payment, which is to encode the payment so it will be credited to each employee as opposed to the SSS and Pag-ibig system where there is no need to encode since the payment made is automatically credited to each employee. Next. Presently, we are still using the old ways of paying Pag-ibig, which is through Bayad Center. We are now in the process of enrolling in EGOB, or the digital government system, with our bank, and expect that time management for all of us entrepreneurs should be easier. This will not only ease up the filing and payment of our monthly contributions, but also eliminate charges on penalties. Next slide, please. For business permit, in completing and renewing our business permit back in 2019, we encountered difficulties securing our locational clearance. After complying to the first notice of action, where we submitted the notarized neighbor's consent with the assistance of the barangay, the council resolution, the barangay clearance, location map, and other supporting documents, we still got a notice of action that our application was disapproved. Next, please. Moving forward, we sent communications to justify our business activity in the location, that we are not a public disturbance or there will be peace and order violations, and eventually received our locational clearance under conditional use. For this year, we have to renew the business permits for the two companies. Company A was on January 4, the first working day of the year. The high volume of people then was expected, but I managed to finish the assessments and payments in half a day. I should thank my senior citizens card for that. And I was happy also to see the posters around announcing the online processing, which I thought was going to be easy for the renewal of Company B. Some difficulties we encountered with online applications for Company A is when the transaction does not proceed to generate the order for payment form. And in this particular unit, it's the sanitary permit in particular. We resorted to doing the falling in line way. We were, however, assisted by kind personnel in helping us log into our account using our phone and using the virtual public network, or VPN, and smoothly proceeded in completing the transaction. For Company B Corporation, however, assessment and payments were made in February, but the appointment notification, which was received a month after, on March 4, is set for an appointment on April 13. As mentioned earlier by Ms. Margie, this is still work in progress, and because of the volume of applications, our appointment is set a month after. Next, please. If your business carry a brand for your products and services, it may be advisable to register the trade name and mark with the Intellectual Property Office to avoid unauthorized use of your trademark or service mark by another party. Similar to DTI and SEC, in registering your business names or brand names, you may search if your name or mark is registrable. This was a longer process for us. It took us about 10 months before we finally got our certificate of registration. When you have your cert of registration, which is valid for 10 years, we should not be complacent because it can be refused, removed, or canceled if the declaration of actual use is not filed within 3 years and within the fifth year, and you can renew this 6 months before the 10th year expiry. Next, please. Okay, communication lines with FDA has been impossible lately and understandable because their priorities these days are with our current health issues. There are some important inquiries that are left unanswered, which causes us a setback for the launch of some of our new products. And hopefully, our clarifications and queries will be accommodated and replied to through email communications. Another challenge we have is the availability of on-site inspection services of FDA for or the basic design and guidelines for a new plant. We need to engage the services of a non-FDA consultant who can help determine FDA requirements to merit approval of the new plant in terms of layout, design, and location. There would be cost implications if the FDA inspector will disapprove the structure that is already 80% complete. If these services can be extended and made available, it will help the small entrepreneurs save both time and resources. Okay, and one of the more pressing concerns we have is the public advisory or the public health warning that is posted by FDA in their Facebook accounts without due process with the trader or manufacturer. An example would be a very old stock of product with a non-compliant label discovered in one faraway provincial store during their post-market audit. This is posted as a public health warning, and it affects the perception of the consumers about the brand and the product, even if the ones existing in the market is already updated and the label is already compliant. Next slide, please. While we experience hiccups with some of the government agencies, we also get support that helps our business. In Quezon City, before the pandemic, they had regular schedules of free seminars and training that aims to create livelihood for the marginalized, like soap making, creating products using recycled materials, and many more. They also invite resource speakers who share their expertise in digital marketing, strategic planning, packaging, and label designs, and many more topics aimed at helping MSMEs improve and grow their business. The Office of the Mayor and the Quezon City Tourism team recently launched their Made in Quezon City coffee table books, showcasing homegrown and artisanal products. The purveyors were invited to highlight their products in trade exhibits sponsored by Quezon City and their partner mall operators. These programs help create jobs, improve skills, products, and packaging, increase brand awareness, widen distribution, and generate sales for the entrepreneurs. Next, please. I believe there are several agencies like DTI, LGUs, and recently I heard from CICs and other institutions that offer MSME loan programs or microfinancing programs. In our case, we can get our SME loan from a commercial bank, or the more attractive option is from the Department of Science and Technology of NCR. DOST launched Setup, or Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program, where we qualify based on their requirements. The financial assistance strictly for the purchase of equipment will be zero interest for 3 years with a grace period of 6 months. The processing fee is only 0.05% or 1,000 pesos payable on the 37th month or at the tail end of the loan term. And the minimum amount per company is 2 million pesos. Aside from the loan, DOST will also provide free technical training to enable us adapt to technological innovations, upgrade products, processes, production efficiencies, and also to improve competitiveness. Next slide, please. Allow me to share the next two slides because I am a victim of my own ignorance and would not like any of you to experience the sleepless nights I went through. And I think this is very relevant now when several businesses are closing shops. The common mistake that we have is a lot of registered businesses, especially the MSMEs, who decide to discontinue their operations, fail to understand the importance of notifying the different government agencies on the closure of their business. Just a friendly reminder to avoid costly penalties and legal impediments. Next slide, please. Moving forward, if one decides to close shop, it is important that you communicate with the employees and make them understand the company's situation that will allow them to plan their options. Drive up collections before informing your debtors of the company's closure, because this might be their way out of not paying us. Third is to conduct an inventory of saleable assets to convert them to cash. Settle your payment obligations to suppliers and creditors. Request for receipts as proof of payment. And finally, inform your customers and thank them for their loyalty and patronage. Next, please. As many would say, it is so easy to start a business, but awfully hard to close one. You have to process the closure with all these government agencies. And just to quickly share, I closed a small cafe business with 5 employees back in 1998. And because of my ignorance, I failed to notify the agencies. Fast forward 20 years after, in 2018, I received a letter from SSS collecting from me more than 2 million pesos for penalties and interest for the monthly contributions I did not continue from the time of closure for the 5 employees that I had back then. I was floored and sleepless for many nights. I have discarded all records, receipts, and files thinking they were useless. Long story short, the happy ending is I was able to gather enough supporting documents to prove the closure. Like one is a notarized affidavit from my lessor. Second was a barangay certificate that the business is no longer existing. Third is a certificate from the LGU. And fourth, a certificate from DTI. And these were all submitted to close the case. And this is a lesson learned. And finally, some agencies, next please. Finally, some agencies like BIR, SEC will look forward for a notarized special power of attorney for your authorized representatives. Better to keep this in mind as well. And that concludes my presentation, and thank you for your time. Stay safe and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Angela. Now that really brings the discussion full circle from starting a business to closing a business. And as Angela has emphasized, as stressed, it's very important for you to know just how you're going to close your business, or you might end up paying penalties, like in our case, 2 million pesos. Uh,
Which I
okay.
did not, well, I was able
Yeah.
to justify the closure.
Yes. So let's just be careful. Now, let's go to open forum. But before I ask questions that I gathered from the chat box and the Q&A box, as well as from the registration form, some registrants had questions for that I can field to the panelists and Natsi. Natsi, would you want to respond to the points that were raised by Ala, Angel, and Margie?
Ma'am. Yes, I think it was also good to hear from at least si Margie again, because Margie was one of our key informants for the study. But particularly si Angel, tsaka si Ala, maganda po yung pag-enhance nila ng knowledge namin on CIC and as well as the experience of a particular entrepreneur with respect to the processes and also the closing of a business. That was so scary.
Yes.
Nakatakot yun. No, because people think that when you finish with your business, you don't have to do the paperwork. I have kasi a single proprietorship that I'm not sure if I've actually closed properly. That's why I was panicking when you said 2 million pesos. So yun, ma'am.
After 20 years.
Oh, hindi naman ako 20 years. I had a business, it was only 2 years ago naman. Pero I will work on that Monday, first thing.
Yeah.
Ma'am, sorry yung kanina si Ma'am Angel, si Miss Gloria, yung tungkol po dun sa appointment system.
Yes po.
Share ko lang din po sa inyo yung experience namin dito sa Quezon City because na-experience namin yung nangyari sa DFA. Because the original appointment system, an email address can set multiple appointments, no limits. Okay? So and then early on, okay lang, na-accommodate namin and all, wala kaming problema until naging inventive itong mga mga usual personnel dito sa usual personalities dito sa Quezon City, na nandito sa Quezon City, mga tambay-tambay dito. What they did is to reserve appointments na siguro mga 1,000, average of 1,000 per emails. So, and then in turn, binibenta po nila. That's why we had to reboot the system. That's why we had to reboot the system by March 1 para po yung ma-filter namin yung talagang legitimate. And up to this point, nag-filter pa rin kami. So dati po, isang email address to unlimited appointments. Effective March 1, one email address, one appointment. So what happened? The legitimate business owners had to wait a long time to get a free time to submit their applications or even just the release of the business permit. Kaya we really had to push the issuance of the digital copy of the business permit. Yun po, even the releasing talaga po, binibenta for 100, 700, to as much as 5,000. Pero nakwel naman po namin agad-agad. And for that, we apologize, ma'am, if you really had a sad experience. Pero naman po, continuous po yung aming enhancement ng system. And you have to remember that when we took over, we're only computerized. We're not automated. But now all the other departments are part of integrated into the system, nag-uusap-usap na sa back end real time. So yun po, at least I think that's something that I'm very proud of because it's really a leap towards the right direction. Big step po yun para sa amin because we never had this system before.
That's right. Well, as you mentioned earlier, it's work in progress and these are part of the birth pains. But I'm happy naman to share that our permit to operate for the single prop, we secured it a week after, but that was part of the process of queuing in line and all that. But I'm also happy to commend that the personnel were very, very helpful and they really assisted us. So the flow and the procedure was smooth. Thank you for that. It's just the other corporation, but we're happy that we've already settled their assessment and payment, which is I think the more important one. And we're looking forward to April 13.
Sige po, ma'am.
Okay. Any other comments? I have several questions at least two questions for Natsi, two questions for Margie, and two questions for Angela. But before that, I would like to share, I think, a comment that was posted by one of the attendees, and that has to do with the discussion that we have been having are actually very urban centric.
Yeah.
So the ease of doing business, all these simplification things, don't seem to resonate in rural areas where you don't have the infrastructure. Uh, and also the link to institutions that can help them simplify processes. But of course, the big question is if you automate, you need good internet connection.
Yes.
That will be our topic in August. We will invite the ICT and again ARTA so
Yeah.
that we can explore. I mean, whatever simplification procedures that you might put in place, all that will be stymied by
So internet
no,
connection.
no or very unstable internet connection.
Okay.
And I think it's one of the problems that was experienced by the Pasig LGU.
In Quezon City also, ma'am.
Also Quezon
Yes.
City.
And
Okay.
no, actually, it's not the internet actually because the ICT provided us with additional internet connectivity. But the problem in Quezon City is that our network infrastructure within the compound is obsolete. so
I
so
see.
it's a network infrastructure, but we are already trying to fix that. We've already bidded out the contract for the um to improve the network infrastructure within Quezon City Hall. So on that note, medyo matatapos na po kami. But to answer your question, ma'am, that's why in Quezon City, we really did not push for full automation or mandated every business establishment to automate, to go online. We really would want that 100% of our businesses are applying online, but in Quezon City that's not possible pa rin, even though we're an highly urbanized city, because there are quite a number of registered businesses that still don't have internet, and like the sari-sari stores, most of them don't understand how the online system works, or it's really so hard to explain to them that this is how you do it, or you can ask your children if they know the internet, if they know how to do it, 'di ba, online. But that's part of the challenges po, migrating everybody online. Kaya po hindi po namin pinilit na 100%. You can still come here to City Hall to submit your application on premise. And if you were not able to set an appointment prior to coming here, we have appointment kiosks so that you can be accommodated pa rin.
I see. Okay, thank you very much, Margie. But there are two questions here for Ala before I forget, no? One question is, are all financial institutions required to submit a list of their borrowers to CIC? And in that connection, is the 24 million is your database of 24 million borrowers have no duplications, knowing that a lot of the entrepreneurs are multiple borrowers? Ala?
Yes, thank you, Ma'am Jean. Thank you to our participants who asked the question. As I have also replied, yes, all the financial institutions, all the lenders in the Philippines are required now to submit the data of all their borrowers. And to the second question, whether these are unique data subjects or these are unique borrowers, yes, the 24 million, these are our unique data subjects in the Philippines, and we have 80 million records. So that's the statistics that we have now.
Debbie, sorry, but since we have Ala there, When you access credit score from the CIBI app, does it provide information on what the score means and the measures available to improve this?
Yes, Ma'am Jean. The statement as to the basis, how it was derived, is included in the credit score, in the credit report that would be generated from the application. Yes.
Yeah. And I think what is on the question of getting credit, I think what is important is with the policy that was instituted by CIC in August of 2020, even the borrowers from microfinance institutions have started creating a credit footprint.
Yes, Ma'am Jean, because we have on that note we have made the submission, the acceptance of our database more lenient. Whereas before we would only require submission only of those with tax identification number. But now, since we have deployed our primary ID tagging system enhancement, then even if an individual does not have tax ID, then it's accepted by the database.
Okay, we have a question here for Angela. What are, in your opinion, what are the best businesses to set up for women during the pandemic? Yeah, you're being asked to provide free consultation there, free advice, business advice. Okay,
All
would
right.
you like to respond to that?
Well, in our experience, our products are the placement of our products, since they're cosmetics.
It's okay.
Naghang siya, ma'am.
Oo nga.
Because of the mall goers.
Yeah.
And but what we saw was a surge in our online platforms, which is the Shopee and the Lazada platforms. And we really saw a surge, but the surge was not enough to really cover the losses that we have been incurring in terms of lower sales. And right now, just like any other businesses, we have to resort to a skeletal workforce and flexible working hours for some of our senior employees. And we continue to focus our efforts now in digital marketing, because I think that's the way to go now. And as for the other business concepts, I think we saw a growth in food deliveries. And there are a lot of backyard people now who are cooking. The home cooked meals are suddenly, all over the Facebook. And I guess it's the best way that the people have also survived the crisis. And we also saw a growth. So there's now the term plantitas and plantitos. Even our neighbors in the setting of plants, and we were surprised that they were working till 11 in the evening. And I would see the people working at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I say, why? What a business! But they're just delivering plants all over the place. So I guess the food, the plants now, because people are more kept in the house and they have more time to cook and to put their own urban gardens and herbs. And I understand Quezon City also launched their urban gardening in the facilities, and they're actually encouraging urban farming for the residents.
Yes, we have urban farming in Quezon City. Ang dami.
Yeah. There is a question from Dina Pura Depositario for Nazi. How has the pandemic affected the barriers faced by women in so far as starting or sustaining business?
That's a very important question, and that was also covered in our study. So we were able to surface some of the difficulties of the women entrepreneurs, particularly for the micro and small entrepreneurs who were operating on very narrow profit margins. Nahirapan talaga sila. Okay, and then they also experienced supply chain disruptions because of lack of mobility and also lack of transportation. And then there were additional costs incurred due to extra requirements brought about by yung mga swabbing, di ba, swab tests and road passes. And then I'm just mentioning some, I'm looking at our report kasi. And then also, a lot of micro entrepreneurs particularly rely on bazaars for their sales. And obviously during the pandemic, we didn't have many bazaars, no? Very limited yung number. And then also, Ma'am Jean, di ba, we were very heartened by this. I think I would like to share this. The women entrepreneurs really tried their best to keep their enterprises alive, even if they were suffering, because they were so careful not to let go of employees. Kasi sabi nilang isa, kasi kahit na 3 empleyado lang yan, hindi lang 3 tao ang maaapektuhan dahil may mga pamilya yan. So iba yung concern, no, ng women entrepreneurs. So parang they also use their heart, not just their minds when they make business decisions. And also there was a decreased demand for many of the products that the women were producing kasi they were non-essential goods. Kaya nga kailangan pagkain tsaka halaman. Non-essential yung halaman, di ba? Pero I know there was a demand for it. And then many of them also transitioned to online selling because that was really impelled by the times. So yun, ang laki po ng epekto ng pandemya sa mga entrepreneurs, no, and we really hope that they will be able to manage surviving, no, throughout this crisis kasi we don't even know when it will end. So talagang tenacity talaga yung kailangan. At saka I'll add rin, because I already mentioned how women entrepreneurs also devoted so much of their time and energies to taking care of their families. Their reproductive burdens were intensified. Kasi nasa bahay na palagi yung mga bata, nagre-remote learning. Sabi nga, di ba, ako ba yung nag-aaral yung anak ko? Bakit ako yung kailangan matuto ng remote learning modes na to? So, and also mental health issues were also surfaced, became salient during the pandemic. And it's the mother who has to, attend to these issues. So yun po yung marami pong epekto yung pandemya sa mga kababaihang entrepreneurs.
May tanong dito, Natsi.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you research for us that you're sharing now, or other studies? Can you say something about the comparative rate of business failure for MSMEs that are female-owned versus those that are female-owned and managed?
You need to commission us for another research. We would love to do that, Ma'am Jean. Because we only look, but we only looked at the barriers kasi po. But we know from the review of related literature that there are higher rates of business discontinuance for women's enterprises. Pero we don't know po the exact numbers.
Yeah, and the thing probably about gender differentiated business discontinuance is if it is based on business renewal.
Yeah.
Renewal yan. Or ano dyan is pwedeng the same enterprise pero iba yung pag-renew, iba na yung may-ari.
Totoo.
Pwede yung asawa na yung may-ari. Kasi doon sa mga ibang pag-aaral, the gender of the owner of the business changes when the business grows.
Yes. It's transferred to the it's transferred to the spouse. The male partners take over. Pero meron tayong data dun sa dun sa new business permit at saka yung renewal. Parang 33% and 19% pagkakatanda ko, ma'am.
Okay.
Ang percentages,
Yeah. At this point, this is very interesting discussion, but I have to put a stop because as usual, my W-GDP webinars keep on going over time. Now, I would like to ask, thank you very much. Before that, I would like to thank Natsi, DG Mai, and our panelists, Margs, Angela, and Ala, for sharing your Friday afternoon with us. Or it's virtually the entire Friday afternoon. Now, before we close, there are other rituals. One ritual is to call on two of our partners for this webinar. For the repeat attendees, you would notice that dati, UPPAF Respond at PCW lang. Yung nakalagay sa banner. For this webinar, and probably for the next succeeding webinars, we have USAID, UPPAF Respond, PCW, UPCWGS, and VSAP. Okay, now for the closing remarks, we would ask Dr. Zarina Saloma Akmedulu, or Mopip, and Attorney Cray Yuson Chavez of PCW to give their closing statements, but I would urge you to stay on after the closing remarks because we have other things to show. Okay, Bopi?
Thank you, Jean. Good afternoon. Current conditions in our country and around the world demand new thinking and practices of development that are more collaborative, co-creative, co-beneficial to both proponents and subjects of a government program. This requires a transdisciplinary perspective, which, as we saw today in the implementation of the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018, draws upon the contribution of many actors to make it work for women entrepreneurs. Women entrepreneurs themselves, such as Ms. Angelita Gloria, and government actors, such as the Anti-Red Tape Authority, Credit Information Corporation, Quezon City Business Permits and Licensing Department. Alongside is the supporting work being done by international development agencies like the U.S. Agency for International Development and other government agencies such as the Philippine Commission on Women, and academics such as the Regulatory Reform Support Program for National Development RESPOND of the UP Public Administration Research and Extension Services Foundation, or UPPAF, and the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies. Dr. Africa Bercell's study points to the need to continue addressing stereotypes for our entrepreneurs and what is entrepreneurship. NATSI has pointed out to the need to pay attention to the differentiated needs of entrepreneurs based on gender and different stages of entrepreneurial activities, and the need to address changing the dialogue about entrepreneurship to match the reality reflected in the data and our laws, such as when delayed and varying compliance to the EODB Act actually means differing experiences among women entrepreneurs. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor of 2018 and 2019 report, based on data from 59 economies, shows that the global average for women's intention to start a business within the next 3 years is 17.6%, about 4 points less than for men. The average global rate for business discontinuance, and we were talking about this earlier with NATSI's report, is about 10% lower for women than for men. These are positive findings for the state of women entrepreneurs, but work remains. According to the same report, gender gap in perceptions of startup skills is about 6%, with 79.5% of women perceiving they have skills to start a business compared to 82 or 84% of men. As Ms. Margie Santos of the Quezon City Business Permits and Licensing Department shared from the Quezon City data, only 19% of the total number of registered entrepreneurs in Quezon City are women. And as Attorney Amor Bautista of the Credit Information Corporation pointed out, 77% of around 300,000 borrowers with active accounts for business are women, which have implications for responsible borrowing. Thus, it is heartwarming to know about the reforms introduced and enacted by the government agencies, by the ARTA and the Quezon City LGU. We heard about the Central Business Portal. It is equally heartwarming to listen to Ms. Gloria's narrative of her experience as an entrepreneur navigating through the DTI the SEC, the BIR, and countless local government units. May the ease of doing business be not just an initiative in improving the regulatory framework to make government transactions for women entrepreneurs and workers faster, but should be a metaphor for the desire to make everyday life easy to navigate for women of all kinds doing all kinds of work. The Women's and Gender Studies Association of the Philippines is very grateful to be part of this afternoon's webinar, where we learn from each other about the best ways to build successful businesses and a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. Thank you, Jean. Jean is a member of the WISAP. Let's continue our work on the ground as well as the knowledge exchanges about our work. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Happy weekend, and more importantly, happy Women's Month.
Thank you very much, Bofi. Now, the next closing address actually is a video message from Attorney Cray of PCW. Shall we play it now, Miriam?
Good afternoon once again. In behalf of the Philippine Commission on Women, we thank the UP Public Administration Research and Extension Services Incorporated for organizing this very insightful and informative webinar. This sixth webinar is very timely because we are currently celebrating our Women's Month under the theme Juan Laban sa Pandemya Kaya. And the best way to do that is to start your own business now, or to revamp one if obstacles were encountered from the pandemic. As mentioned earlier, 99.5% of the businesses in the Philippines are MSMEs, and 58% of these are women-led. These statistics show not only that MSMEs are considered the backbone of our economy, but that this particular sector lives and thrives because of innovative and entrepreneurial women. Because of this and several other factors, everyone is encouraged to invest in women. For years, our government has continually tried to encourage entrepreneurship in women and have implemented policies and programs to help carry this through. Despite earnest efforts, however, most women still face various challenges in starting a business, including its sustainability. That is why, as the lead advocate for women's empowerment, including economic empowerment, PCW is greatly appreciative of the initiatives of UPPAF to advance the interests of women entrepreneurs and their workers. Initiatives such as webinars like this one, where women are shown how to start their own business, and where gender gaps and issues on EODB policies and practices are surfaced, with the goal that in due time the gaps are closed, issues resolved, and the women are capacitated not only to start their own business but to sustain it as well. We hope that our viewers, and not only the women, but all MSMEs and aspiring MSMEs are encouraged, knowing that as shared by our distinguished speakers, starting a business or sustaining an existing one is not all that complicated. Policies and procedures are made simpler and accessible for all who are interested to do business. Again, happy Women's Month. Mabuhay po.
Okay, thank you very much, Cray. Now we come to the awarding of certificates of appreciation to our speakers and panelists. Okay, and we will only show one, but okay, we will show, I think, everything. Certificate of appreciation is hereby presented to Mr. Jeffrey Gobel for delivering the opening remarks in the W-GDP Webinar Series on Women's Economic Empowerment, number 6, entitled Ease of Doing Business, Helping Women Entrepreneurs Start and Sustain Their Business, held on March 12, 2021. This will be digitally signed by Dr. Enrico El Basilio and sent to Jeff. The next certificate of appreciation goes to Attorney Jeremiah B. Belgica for imparting valuable insights as main speaker in the W-GDP Webinar Series on Women's Economic Empowerment, etc., etc. Next is a certificate of appreciation to NATSI okay, for imparting valuable insights as main speaker in the webinar, etc., etc. Now, I'm doing this so to speed the process. The next three certificates will go to the panelists. First is Attorney Eileen L. Amor Bautista, or ALA. The next will be for Margie Santos. And the third will be for Angela Gloria. And also, we will also be giving certificate of appreciation to BOPIP, Dr. Zarina Saloma Akpedunu, and to Attorney Cray Yuzon Chavez of PCW. Now, for those who would like to get copies of the presentations plus a link to the recording, you'll have to answer the post webinar survey. We have announcements here. Okay, Jazz, are you going to give out as announcements? Okay, that's the important one. The next, I think, will be, this is an announcement for the next webinar. And that will not happen next month. It will happen in May. Unlike in previous webinars, this is dedicated actually to the people behind all the efforts to create and sustain a gender responsive governance environment. And the topic will be new tools for GAD advocates. And one of the three tools that have been lined up now, one is the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Impact Assessment, which is part of the Regulatory Impact Assessment that DG Belgica had mentioned earlier. Then the other will be two tools that PCW is finalizing. One is the refreshed, updated GIRL LGU, a tool for gender responsive LGU. And the other is a tool for assessing gender focal point system. So that will be, and then there will be other tools. Okay, we will also, as I've already said, please answer the post-webinar survey. But before we really close, I would like to acknowledge the technical support from the UPPAF RESPOND team, what I call the webinar ladies, especially Miriel Damsani, who has been my left and right hand, not only for the webinars, but also for the other W-GDP activities. And also Jazz Montenegro, who prepared the posters and the PowerPoint presentation for the introduction part. And Gobel Alzate, and who has provided actually the registration links to the different attendees and panelists. And lastly, to Kay Bagas, who has been our bridge to the different partners of UPPAF RESPOND. Now, at this point, I can really say thank you very much to all for staying with us until the end. Thank you, thank you. Okay, and keep safe. Goodbye.
Happy weekend to all.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Happy weekend.
Ma'am, walang picture taking.
Ay,
Ayan,
oo.
oo nga.
Picture taking. Nasaan na yung iba dating mga ano?
Okay, just open the ano.
Margie, paki-open ng mga videos. Yes, sama kayo. Margie, Angela, are you still? Is Angela still there? Good.
I'm here.
Okay. So Margie, Angela, so si Digimay ang absent. Sila nagpipicture taking?
Ako po, sige, Miss Jean.
Sige, darling.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Another one po. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thank you.
Buti na lang natin, na-remember mo yung picture.
First celebration.
Oo nga, oo. Sige, okay.
Thank you very much, Ma. Mission accomplished, Ma.
Yes. And